Okay, as a background to the film mentions, this began as a screenplay by you, was then adapted to a novel, which in turn was adapted back to a screenplay by you. What
Not
is
that's close. Let's put
okay?
it this way. You're closer than 98% of the journalists who have gotten it so wrong. It's just I've never seen so many people get something so wrong. And it's not as complicated as it sounds. But so do you want me to set the record straight? 14 years ago, um, the Marty Bowen, a great producer, top-notch guy, says communicates to me through his development director that he would love to do Love Story or Autumn in New York, that kind of movie set at Oxford University. I came home and I wrote a treatment for it. That treatment is virtually what you see on the screen now.
Huh,
Um, I waited to meet with Marty, and he got incredibly busy all over the world doing big movies. Months and months went by, maybe even a year, and I get a call that he loves the treatment and would like to meet with me. So I go in, we talk about it, we pitch it a couple of places. People kind of like it, but what they really want is for you just to write the spec script.
right,
Because if they buy a pitch, it's because the concept is just so strong that even if you do a bad job, they still want to own that concept.
got it.
But a love story at Oxford isn't that strong a concept. It's all about how you do it.
Right,
So I said to Marty, okay, I will write this on spec and I'll just write the script. And I remember my words where I said, I don't want a lot of input now. You can actually, I said, you can give me all the input you want. I'm just going to use what I want to use. But once I sell it, then I'm your slave. Then you own it, and then I'll do your bidding. So I
right.
went away. I wrote the script. Came back 8 weeks later. We went out with it, and we had two buyers within a few days. We chose one of the buyers, which was Sony Screen Gems. I executed what I thought was a very intelligent and reasonable amount of notes. Like when I did my rewrite for them, which is part of the deal, I felt great about it. It's one of those rare examples where I felt like, wow, this is better. We improved it 20%. This is good. I'm going to do it. Um, year, and then once you open that can of worms and things go into development, Katie barred the door. So I would hear reports that a certain person or a certain team of writers, that people were working on it, and I just stayed out of it. I
Right,
moved on. I was directing movies. I know
right.
better from being a veteran. You can't get caught up in that stuff. A few years later, uh, Marty called me and said, "How it might really help advance this project if we had a novel, because Temple Hill, his company, also has a publishing arm."
Oh, there you go.
And he said, "You're a novelist. Why don't you novelize it?" And I said, "Well, I would, except it's changed. And I can't novelize somebody else's script.
Uh-huh.
I would novelize mine, but not someone else's." I said, "Why don't you get one of the writers you've hired and get that?" I said, "Get that girl that went to Oxford for a year and get her to do it."
Very good.
And sure enough, they did. Again, years went by, time went by, the novel appears. It's about to come out. They send me and I go, "Wait a second. This isn't a novel. This is a novelization. My name has to be on it. You can't, my
Right,
copyright exists." So if you open the copyright page to her novel, it says clear as day, based on an original screenplay by me.
hmm,
Just to make sure that copyright was mine, we even asked the Writers Guild and said,
sure.
if her version of the script were shot tomorrow, I can't stress this enough. We said to the Guild, if her version of the script were shot tomorrow, what would it say on the screen? They arbitrated, they came back, they they did their credit determination, they came back and said it would say written by Allison Burnett. In other words, the underlying story was not changing.
Right,
You don't get credit for lines. You don't get credit for character names. You don't get credit for sentiment. You get credit for story,
right.
underlying story. Okay. So the book comes out, it does very well. It does very well around the world.
Wow.
Temple Hill and I have a large stake in that book, and we're very happy it's doing so well.
Nice.
And and then more years go by, and more years go by, and it keeps. And then the COVID hits, and I hear that Netflix wants to pull it out of turnaround. It's pretty much dead at Sony,
Sure.
and so Netflix takes it out. They look around. COVID gets worse. 2 more years, they take it out again. Every time I am part of that process. If I were a young, egotistical, self-destructive, or an asshole, I could have made it. Could have been a mess, but I
Yeah.
just cooperated in every
Yeah.
way, shape, or form I could, with no concept of. I didn't know what the script was going to be. I didn't know what the movie was going to be. I didn't know what my credit would be. I just did whatever was necessary to make it into a movie. Team player. And the next thing I know, it's a movie, and they're shooting, and next thing I know, they're doing a credit termination, and I find out, and then Netflix says the final determination is story by me, screenplay by me, and a writer I didn't even know, or I didn't know Melissa Osborne,
Julia.
but I knew that another writer had come and delivered it.
Oh.
It was nothing to do with Julia
Okay.
Whalen, who wrote the book.
Right.
So I don't even know the ending. I don't know anything. So the next thing, so I think, well, someone's probably going to contest this determination that Netflix has made. Nobody contested it. 2 weeks went by. That's the final credit. And then it was time. And then it was like awkward, because now the movie's coming out. And what do you put on the screen?
Right.
It's not based on her book. It's not inspired by her book.
Right.
It's story by me. I mean, once you see story by me, you know it's not the book, right? Screenplay by both of us. So what goes on the movie? And we decided that because of all the people that love the book, there should be some inclusion of the book.
Absolutely.
So the credit reads book by. Just states book by. It doesn't say anything else about it, and that's it.
Right.
And that's where we are today.
Amazing.
And so I don't listen. I welcome all of it. The book is beautiful. The book has its own charms, its own efficacy. The people that love it love it. And then there's a movie that is a separate entity that they often love. But what the only part that's hard for me is when people say, why, oh, why did they change the ending? Mm-hmm. And Julia's been very forthright. She said, they didn't change the ending. I changed the ending.
Interesting.
So notice how the movie always departed from her book, how she chose to create something that was separate. Don't lament that hers was not loyally adhered to.
Yeah. So what was your relationship with director Ian Morris regarding the interpretation of this many story? Did he mind the novel as well as was he relying on your take? Okay.
I have no idea. I had no relationship with him. I met him at the premiere. He's a lovely guy.
Yeah.
I met Corey at the premiere. I met Melissa Osborne, my rewriter, at the premiere. Everybody was lovely. Everybody was in a great mood. Everything was good.
Yeah. Why not?
All I know is I did not know what I was going to see on opening when I went. No idea.
That's
I had not
wild.
seen it. All I'd seen was the trailer. and I frankly, to be honest, I felt quite blessed to have the credit that I had, because I just naturally assumed, after all these years and all these rewriting, that I was dimly going to recognize what I saw. And I was shocked, because I was seeing my structure laid out exactly as I wrote it. And whole scenes were just from the opening of her clopping with her suitcase up the stairs. All of that was in my script, scene for scene. So I was delighted to see that Melissa Osborne kept so much of what I had. The scene in the bar where they get in the fight. Yeah, of course, what he mocked her with had been updated a bit about diversity quotas and stuff, but the whole essence of it was the same. And even the harem girl joke, and there were all these things that were right in my script that I was delighted to see. And I'm looking and I'm saying, holy Christ, I just saw this, so it was a great feeling.
All right.
At the same time, I was wholly grateful to Melissa Osborne, because they really wanted it to be like a romantic comedy for the first hour. And I was very happy to see like she did a great job. Like she took it and she lightened it, and she took my secondary characters and built them up and like gave them more comedy. And like I didn't write karaoke, you know, there was stuff that I
Right, right.
would have been too light for the movie I was writing. And you know, it's a big love fest. I
Excellent.
have no complaints.
The story is based in a love of poetry and the power of words to both move people and comfort them in times of difficulties. What is your go-to poem, and how has its power
Well,
transformed
I'm
your
embarrassed to admit,
circumstance?
like my go-to poems made it into that movie. I was like, wow.
Nice,
Like my
nice.
literally my favorite two poems in the world are
Wow,
the Edna St. Vincent Millay sonnet that
so beautiful.
that she reads a little bit of it,
Hmm.
um, and the and Dover Beach. I love Dover Beach, and she reads a whole chunk of it.
Nice.
Um, I love Victorian poetry. I studied Victorian poetry. Like as he says, I never imagined when I took the class at Northwestern.
Uh,
I never imagined that these stuffy old guys with their mutton chops, that these poems would be so full of like raw desire and terror and death. Like it was in love, like so passionate, these poems. I
yeah,
mean, Tennyson is unbelievable. I mean, Tennyson had his best friend died in the war, and he wrote about, you know, like a whole book just about his love of his best friend. You know, it's really just incredible. These poems, and I was really happy to see them put into a movie.
a few career questions. What is the story of your assignment to create Bleeding Hearts? And how did it become the directorial debut of the late, great Gregory Hines?
A good friend of mine said, if you write a movie about race relations, I will put $1 million into it, and I'll star in it.
Hmm.
And I was an SAT tutor at the time, and I was also a really really kind of raving left wing politically.
Mhm.
So I just imagined, like I knew that when I tutored these high school girls, that you really take you're telling them you're tutoring them on language, but you're tutoring them on a lot of other things. And we talked about a lot. And I started imagining what would happen if a left wing, bleeding heart lefty saw a young black girl studying for SAT in Central Park,
Mhm.
and he decided to, out of the kindness of his liberal heart, to tutor her for free so that he could help her get a chance against this racist test.
Hmm.
And but then what if he then blundered in and colonized her? What if he did what America and was called, the original title was White Man's Burden.
Uh,
So he goes in there and imposes his thoughts, his value, his politics, and eventually his body, and gets sexually involved with her. I mean, she's 17, which in those days was legal, but it was
sure.
clearly unethical. He's about 29. I mean,
Okay.
he has no idea that what he's doing is wrong. He is so in love with her. He is so in love with the idea of what he's doing. So it was really a kind of a vicious indictment of do-gooderism and playing the great white father. It's an anti-colonial movie. It doesn't work very well. Um, some of the acting is superb. The black actors are great. Some of the white performances aren't great. The last 15 minutes will take your breath away, will knock your head off.
I'm
They're
going to
so
see it.
good. But there's a lot of shaky stuff. Gregory was not a director. There's a reason he didn't direct before. There's a reason he didn't direct after. He
Interesting.
really was way out of his depth. Charles Burnett wanted to direct it, and that would have been
Mm.
amazing. Even with its flaws, the Hudlin brothers still put it into this African American film festival that went all around. It's called the African American Diaspora Film Festival, and it went to all these cities, and they brought that movie along with it. So it got its day, but it's really marginalized. Hardly anyone has seen it. Um, it's, you know, because it has such there's such lapses in the acting. The music has a kind of listless boredom to it. Like it's flawed,
Yeah.
but man, those last 15 minutes are so brutal.
What advantages does a storyteller have when they both write and direct a film, especially when I'm thinking about Ask Me Anything, also based on your novel?
Well, for me, it's like heaven on earth. I mean,
Ah,
I've directed three movies: Red Meat, Ask Me Anything, and Another Girl. And in every case, like there's no separation between me as a director and the material. So I can help the actors. I work with them so intimately. I know exactly what I want, or of course I want to be surprised, and I am, but I know where it's all what it all means.
Right.
I know where the camera
Right.
has to be.
Right.
Like it's just see, and we made these movies for no money. Another Girl, we only had 15 days. Ask Me Anything, we had essentially 3.5 weeks. Very low budget. You're getting 2 takes and 3 takes. You're moving very quickly, so you don't have time to mess around. But for me, it's heaven on earth. I mean, it's all the joy of being a novelist without the solitude.
Good
What
point.
kills me is that I have a third book
Uh-huh.
called The Last Girl Podcast that completes the trilogy of Ask Me Anything and Another Girl. But there isn't $1 million lying around to make it. So I just
Hmm.
have to hope that someday. I mean, because The Last Girl Podcast it's written as a podcast script. I mean, it's a novel, but the form is as though it were a podcast script. I could someday perhaps just do a podcast of it, and it
Sure.
would work
Sure.
brilliantly because it's written that way. But we'll see. I don't know.
Interesting. So you are a collector of American and show business paraphernalia. What was your greatest find, and why does it have increased meaning for you over and over above your other collectibles?
Wow, it's a great question. Yeah, in fact, I just got these this week. These are signed postcards from the Hollywood Canteen,
Oh
um,
gosh.
and I have probably 100 of them. And
Oh,
all the movie stars of the day. Right down here is Ida Lupino.
nice.
All the movie stars of the day um, worked at the Hollywood Canteen, which was a saloon, a bar. Oh, it didn't serve liquor. It had coffee and sandwiches for all
Yeah,
the
I'm.
soldiers and
Yeah.
sailors who were home. And I have a huge collection of that. It's funny. I don't really sell my stuff. I'm just a collector. But I just sold the biggest thing I've ever found. I sold it last week
Okay.
at Hake's Auction House, HAKE''S. They're the
Okay.
best auction house for any pop culture.
Oh,
They're the kind of
nice.
place that get 150,000 for a comic book and that kind of
Right.
place.
Right. Right.
So I found for $2 at an estate sale a little kid's ring that was the first collectible that the Superman and Action Comics came out with in 1940, and it was sitting in a pile of stuff. And I just took it out, and I, for some reason, had my glasses, which I always forget, and I kind of look like that, and I see red enamel and a thunderbolt and a lightning bolt and a picture, and it said Superman member Superman Club or something. So I just went, oh my God. So I bought it for $2. I held on to it for a while, and with the movie coming out, I placed it at auction. They estimated it would sell between $5,000 and $10,000. There's
Mhm.
only 21 of them in the world,
Oh wow.
and it sold for, with the buyer's premium, it sold for 18,700. That was
Ka-ching.
pretty great. And I know some collector out there is very happy, and it meant nothing to me. I don't care
Right.
about comic books, so it was easy to get rid of. So
Amazing.
that's one of my
Just
prizes.
amazing. Finally, knowing the entertainment marketplace today, what advantages did you have in the era you started out, as opposed to what you observe about people who are starting out now with the same ambitions?
Oh God, I know they must be sick of hearing this, but it was so great I started out here in the 90s. I
Yeah.
arrived here in October of 90,
Ah,
and it was like it was the heyday. And
yeah.
like the greatest thing about it was the spec market. It was the idea that you could sit in your room and you could write a spec script.
Right.
And if you had anyone in the world that cared enough to help you get it out there, that thing would go out in one weekend. It would be at a whole bunch of buyers, and it was exciting as hell. Now, sometimes in the early days, sometimes I wouldn't sell them in the early. I came here in October of 90. I had my first big spec sale in July of 94. So that was a lot, and that was a lot of scripts. I was writing a lot. So I sometimes a script would get you lots of love. It wouldn't sell for one reason or another. They say, it's too small for us. It's too edgy for kids, so we can't buy it. But you would have 50 meetings, and you would just do a caravan of meetings to
Right.
every production company, every studio. Like you got to know everybody. They all wanted to meet you because you were new writers, or a new writer, and they liked your work. So it was a feeling that you were part of this community, and you were kind of beating on the door. And then once you got in, you were in. And from the day that I sold that first romantic comedy on my own, you know, I sold it. I remember my agent called me and said, "We have an offer," and I'm like, "Oh my God!" Like I never had an offer before. I remember I had an indie made. I had a White Man's Burden made. I had little things,
Right,
but
right, right,
nothing like this. I had a
right.
Roger Corman movie made, and that was for $6,000. But he calls me and he says they've offered us. What do I? Oh God, I got to get this right now. I think they said they've offered us 250 against five. So it means 250,000 guaranteed against another 200,000 if they make it. So it's 550 total. 250 against five. Right, that's right, against five. So it's 250, 250. And he says, "Do you have a strong stomach or how are your nerves?" I said, "Fine." He goes, "Okay, well, I'm going in for more." So
Wow.
so I sat there with one of my best friends and we just waited. Like I was giddy because I know these deals don't fall apart. Like you're gonna settle somewhere. And then he called me like 3 hours later. He said, "Okay, I got you 350, 200 more if they make it, 300 more if Kenneth Branagh agrees to be in it." Because my agent represented Kenneth Branagh and he would have been perfect for it. So basically it was 350 against 550. And so like at that moment, you're kind of in the club and that's when 350 was really
Yeah,
350.
yeah.
Like it isn't today.
Life-changing
Um,
money.
yeah, in those days it was half a house. These days it's a
Yeah,
fourth of a house.
yeah.
Um, and yeah, it was, and I took 10 friends out to dinner,
Oh,
to
yeah.
a steak dinner that night. Like we didn't mess around. The next day, my girlfriend and I at the time went to Santa Barbara and stayed in a hotel for 2 nights and just sat there
Yeah,
like
yeah,
giggling,
yeah.
and that was it. And I've never worked another job. I used to do a lot of shit jobs to survive.
Sure.
I never had to do a job to survive again.
That's
Like
a
I was
great.
in, and I've made my living for those, well, 31 years now.
So good luck to anybody today trying to do the same thing.
Well, now it's like now they literally. I mean, you know what it took for Netflix to buy this? Like, in order for them to say yes,
Uh-huh.
that you needed one of the best producers in Hollywood, Marty Bowen, to come in with Sophia Carson, and
Mhm.
she said, "I want this movie to be my next movie." Like that's what it takes.
Yeah,
You need
yeah, yeah,
cast, you need
yeah,
direct. They didn't
yeah.
have director yet, or maybe I don't know if they had director yet, but they might have. I mean, it takes so much. And
Yeah,
how do you get the actor and the director if you're
yeah,
not paying them, if you're not guaranteeing them something,
right,
right?
right.
Agents don't, so it's transitioning right now in a big way. Where agents used to say, "Listen, if you don't have a deal on the table, I'm not going to expose my actor's name to your project. If it gets, what if it gets shot down?
Right, right.
What does that do for my actor?" But those days are changing as people require more. The streamers require more and more of you.
This is Patrick McDonald for HollywoodChicago.com. Copyright 2025.